And I'm excited to introduce our expert, Chief Technologist and Enterprise Architect with a wealth of leadership experience and a strong technical background at Mapsys, presenting DJ Singley. Our team surveyed over 300 plus technical and business decision makers, asking them, to describe their personal journey with AI. And here's what we found. 47% of them stated that they are interested, while 38% of them stated they are very familiar. 37% of them says they play with Chat GPT. And as you can see on the set of data right here, some of them says that their company uses AI, so they have to be familiar on it. Now, DJ, what's your thought on these data? And how knowledgeable about AI is the average business leader versus a technologist?
Oh boy, that's a good one. Yeah. So well, first off, I'm certainly I'm pleased with these results, right? It's not that shocking, right? There's been a lot of interest in AI ever since ChatGPT came on the scene about a year or two ago, right? So this isn't really anything to be I think to be shocked about, but I think the average business leader, if I were to be, quite frank about it, is probably not as knowledgeable on the AI scene as the folks that are on our panel today or on our call today with this webinar today. Mostly because they have lots of other things they're trying to do. They're trying to manage their business and do what they need to do with what the company requires. And it's AI is just something out there that is in the future, right? Always in the future. Um, but realistically though, I think you know, so I've been on the AI conference circuit here for a little while myself, right? And I get a chance to talk with a lot of people about what they're doing with AI, what their plans are. And I'll tell you, the first two sessions that are always filled up in any AI conference, the first two are how do I get started, right? And how do I operationalize AI? So that's like when I started and I'm going to do this and I'm committed to it, how do I actually do it? Right. Now, of course, my sessions are all AI 101. So if you ever catch me at a conference, come join my sessions, folks. I promise you'll learn something. But so I think both those two sessions are very telling. And I think your data are very telling about what people want to see and what they want. They're interested in AI. They want to learn how to operationalize AI and derive value out of AI within their businesses. And when most people say, hey, okay, what's my first step? My first step, I usually tell them is like, listen, you need some help, most likely, right? I'm a consultant. There's many other consultants out there that do a lot of AI work. I would say the very first thing you need to do is talk to a trusted resource, talk to a trusted consultant. Now, I will also say that depending on who you talk to, right, you're going to find that folks like myself and other consultants out there, we certainly have our bias with our tech stack, whatever tech stack we're into. There's lots of tech stacks out there from smaller companies, from the larger companies, from the big cloud providers. I mean, you name it. Even ChatGPT has its own tech stack that you could buy into and use. So just be aware of that. The consultants that you're going to be talking to are going to have their favorites, and you'll probably be biased with those favorites as well too. Now, I think there is something else that you can do too, and maybe this is something you do first before you even talk to a consultant. And I like this idea, and I'm going to kind of frame this as well. I like this term, so I'm going to use it. It's what I call the AI Center of Excellence within your organization. What is it? Well, really, it's just a task force or a think tank that is comprised of senior leaders, business unit leaders, project managers, and folks who do the work, right? Folks who would possibly use the application or the modification of a current process or procedure that you're using in-house to do the work. So I'm actually pretty excited. Right now, as I sit here with you, I have a good friend and customer down south, not affected by the hurricane, going through the beginnings of his creation of an AI center of excellence. So what they've done is throughout their company is they decided, all right, we're going to put together these little teams and we're going to compete, a friendly competition over 2 weeks on who can come up with, again, no coding. This is very low code, no code type of effort. This is all big idea,
Mhm.
big brain, hop high in the sky type of thing. what kind of applications or procedures, processes could we leverage AI to improve or create or even make new lines of business from something that they could create. So they're in the process of doing that right now. I think they're doing the right thing, and I've seen this in lots of other companies like financial firms, especially around me locally here, engineering firms, things like that. This idea of an AI center of excellence, I think, is really important. But when you do something like this, when you're looking to take a look at what AI is good for in your organization, I think it's also important that you eventually approach the folks who hold the purse strings. Again, the CFO or the people who would be bankrolling this, is that they need to have some sort of a little bit of skin in the game, some buy off on what it is that um, they may be asked to fund should this come out to be something
Mhm.
useful or really interesting. So really, again, AI Center of Excellence, really good place to start. Finding a consultant or somebody, a big brain to help you, and then start with a solid problem statement. If it's rocky, it's not going to work. You need to have a solid problem statement. What it is that you're trying to solve in the company or in your business structure to to create value for your business. So problem statement, very important. So again, that's new applications that could have new revenue streams attached to it, or enhancing old applications, or even providing other lines of business with a new tool to help them um, do something interesting, right? So yeah. Anyway, that's sort of
Mm.
kind of I guess a little overview of my thought here about it.
Mhm.
But I think that by working together, both the leaders in the company and the rest of the folks, with something like a AI Center of Excellence, you can start getting off the ground with AI. So I'm glad that folks are interested in it. This is again the biggest question that I see throughout my travels and talks with AI.
Awesome. Well, very well said, DJ. Thank you so much. Now let's move on to the next slide. Now, for the next slide, DJ, I'll have two sets of data to present to you and to our attendees. So here's the first bit of the data. We reached out to over 500 plus business and technical decision makers to explore which areas of their business do they believe AI could impact, positively or negatively. And here's what we've learned. You know, um, 53% of them stated that increasing productivity, and then 50% of them stated innovation, 36% of them stated improving customer experience, 32% stated machine learning. And as you can see on the data sets here, there are 11% who said blockchain technology, 17% IoT. DJ, what do you think about this data?
Yeah, I think this plays pretty well into my thoughts here with it, and that
Mhm.
is low-hanging fruit. That is where I
Mhm.
see the biggest impacts first on almost all organizations. You want to bring this technology in and you want to ROI it as fast as possible and have an impact as fast as possible. And that is whatever your low-hanging fruit is. So the very first two parts there, right, is sort of go along with what I was talking about before, right? Increasing
Mhm.
productivity. Well, how could you increase productivity? I'll give you an example, a real world example. This is again obvious when I talk about it, but maybe not as obvious when you don't think about this type of stuff much. But almost all businesses sell something, some widget, and have a call center to take calls about that widget, to place orders, to complain about orders, to return things, to talk about missing things with their orders or whatnot. Call centers are an awesome place to deploy AI, especially chatbots. So, anywhere you can increase productivity from a call center rep would really, really help. A chatbot that is trained on your data, or at least has access to your data through RAG or some other method, um, can more effectively have those employees answer the questions that they're given over the phone, and then get that caller off the phone and
Mhm.
the employee onto another phone call, right? You want to solve these issues as fast as you possibly can. AI is a great example in a call center environment. Now, I probably, when I do what I'll call as a design thinking session with a customer, and again, that's when you have your AI center of excellence, your little task forces, and you sit down and you come up with an idea for an AI application. I always go to innovation. That's just sort of my uh my foray. I was a designer back in the day a long time ago, and innovation is sort of my
Wow.
space that I always kind of gravitate to more a little bit. So what is that? That is, to me, that is bringing about a new application, potentially a new forms of revenue or revenue streams that you can call on for your organization, something new that you can offer to your customers to use. So, say AI infused app on your cell phone, or things of that nature that you could do. Now, I think when I scroll down this list here, I look at the blockchain stuff at 11%, and wow, I'm fascinated. What is your audience doing with blockchain? I'd love to know. I've done a few
Mm.
blockchain projects, and I've not done anything with AI and blockchain at this point, but that is
Uh-huh.
yeah, that's a pretty neat answer. I'm pretty
Oh,
impressed that they had mentioned blockchain. But let me talk a little bit about some other things before we get to the other part of your data.
sure.
Um, because I think, you know, let's kind of level set, I guess, a little bit about AI in general, right? So a lot of you folks had mentioned that you're already looking at ChatGPT. That's great. That's great. ChatGPT is a generic model based on generic data that is fed to it, usually from public sources, public places, whatever. ChatGPT has no knowledge of your data, right? And your data is valuable. It's what makes your company, right? So um, you really do need to, when you bring in AI into your organization, is not just have a generic model, but retrain that model, or have that model have access through retrieval augmented generation, or other methods, to get at your data to make the AI more valuable for your particular business. So, for instance, in that same call center model, if I'm sitting here banging away with a question, I say, "Hey, what happened to this order?" Well, if the AI has no insight, or line of sight, rather, to your data in your organization, it won't have a clue what's going on with that order or whatnot. So anyway, so that's that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about non-generic AIs here in your organization. Lots of ways to retrain them or to derive value on them using your data, because your data is really ultimately what's valuable.
Thank you. Thank you so much, DJ. Um, I believe we have a question from the audience. Let's just
Yeah,
have
yeah,
a
sure.
quick look. What's your view on the new Apple Intelligence?
Oh, well, I think it's kind of funny that Apple Intelligence AI is it uses the same acronym. I love it. Uh, it's hard to say. I haven't used it yet. I think it's still in beta or preview. It comes out next month or something. We'll all be able to use it. I've seen some of the marketing stuff that they've done with it. I'm all for it. I can't wait to get AI in our pockets and using it more and more every day. I think, and may not be a joke, folks, okay? I think that half the emails I get these days are written by AI. They are suddenly, my coworkers are just more verbose and clear in their communications. And is it ChatGPT, or is it Frank over in accounting telling me what's going on? So I don't know. That's a good question. I think we'll all find out together, but I'm excited for it. Hope you are too.
Thank you. Thank you so much, DJ, for answering that question. Now let's look at the second set of data. You know,
Hmm.
this is from 200 plus business and technical decision makers, and we ask them, in what ways do they believe AI-enabled capabilities could enhance their business's competitive position or performance? So this is what we've uncovered. As you can see here, 37% of them stated it's improved efficiency. 28% of them, this is, I believe, aligned to what you were saying earlier, better customer service. 25% stated resource optimization, including staffing. And the rest, as you can see here, 9% was like improved data security, 17% was greater insight and intelligence. DJ, does this align to what you see? And looking at those two data, the first one combined with this one, with this two
Hmm.
sets of data, what part of the business does AI usually impact first?
Well, again, I think this perfectly aligns. Yeah, it's always the low-hanging fruit. And I think most people, when you sit in a design thinking session with your colleagues, and you're trying to figure out what best place to use AI first, you're gonna find some process or procedure to improve. That's the first one right there. And it goes hand in hand with customer service, especially those call center applications, right? I'd probably say the number one conversation I have with customers today is all centered around, that first low hanging fruit, and that is call center all the time, improving their efficiency, getting them on and off the phone faster, and just providing a better experience for their customers with that call center app. But it
Mhm.
goes further, right? This is like I hate to use this term, I really do, because there's other implications to it, but it's sort of like a gateway drug to this technology. You find some great success with it here, and then you augment your success by finding other areas of the business where you can then leverage AI, right? So I think there's a lot to be said about how my viewpoint and this data really marry up. Now, I will say the one thing here is the cost savings only at 12%. That's surprising to me, really. Maybe it's because most folks on the phone here or on the webinar don't
Mhm.
maybe closely associate cost savings in like the examples that I've shared with you so far, right? So maybe that's it. I don't know. I'm surprised it's not higher because my half of my conversations always lead to in the end that especially when you're improving efficiencies and whatnot with call centers and other areas, is there is always a savings in cost that goes along with it, almost hand in hand. So I think that's pretty interesting. Let's see. There's a couple other things I do want to mention here, though. Um,
Mhm.
just again looking at the data here. Um, when I first chat with a customer and get introduced to them, I like to talk about the art of the possible with AI. Because again, when you're thinking about all the things you can do in your organization, you're probably not even aware of all the things that have been done in the past for other customers. And I think that helps seed everyone's thoughts. So the art of the possible. And I think even if you Google that term, like AI, art of the possible, just to seed yourself what other folks in the industry have been doing, you're going to get a lot of interesting ideas. I'll start out with, listen, back in the day before generative AI, let's be clear, generative AI is an artificial intelligence that generates new data, whether it be pictures, words, whatever, based on its training. That's what generative AI is, right? But before we had generative AI, I was using deep learning and machine learning to do things like this is part of the art of the possible. The problem statement of a customer is I'm shipping milk all over the country, and
Mhm.
half of my milk crates aren't coming back. I don't know why. Well, you put a bunch of cameras all over your distribution areas and you count the milk crates going out and then you count them coming back in. And then you can very, very easily find which part of your distribution network those milk crates are disappearing. And I'll give you a hint. Largely, they end up in dorm rooms. But that's neither here nor there. This is just the idea of the art of the possible. All the things you can do with this crazy new technology, deep learning, machine learning, and generative AI. Looking at defects in manufacturing, counting pipes as they go in and out of manufacturing or receiving facilities, and then summarizing documents is a great one. I know a lot of folks out there, including myself. I'm guilty of it. I say guilty for a reason, including myself. Am guilty for asking ChatGPT to summarize certain documents for me, legal documents, whatnot.
Mhm.
And or even taking a look at maybe EKGs or X-rays, health data, that type of thing. I will say though that this is a big problem, very, very big problem. And
Mhm.
if you folks didn't spend a lot of time looking at the ChatGPT you love, maybe you should, right? This is where governance really comes in. And I think a lot of my fellow peers in this industry don't talk about governance enough. Or if they are talking about governance, they're only addressing the part of governance that they understand and that they see a solution for. They're not talking about the entirety of governance. Here's the problem. When you let that data go out of your organization, up to the cloud, up to, OpenAI, they're keeping it and they're using it to train your next version of ChatGPT 5 or whatever they're doing, right? That's a big problem. Your data is valuable. It's your data. You probably shouldn't be letting your data out of your organization inadvertently. I know you didn't realize you did it, but that's what happens. And governance is a big deal, right? So governance, let's talk real briefly about what that means, right? Hallucinations, that's part of governance. If your model is hallucinating, that's bad. You got to life cycle your models. That means as the data or the model gets older, it becomes less and less useful. It needs new data. It needs to be retrained, or it needs to have access to new data through retrieval augmented generation. That's RAG. That's that new thing. Not really that new, maybe a year, 2 years old now at that point. But that again is part of governance. And then catching nefarious prompts. That is also part of governance. So what does that mean? Well, that means if I'm a user with your AI sitting in your call center, can I somehow get this chatbot to spill the beans on data that it knows about that it's not supposed to tell me about, like somebody's social security number? That has happened, and it's a real
Mhm.
problem. So again, that all that is part of governance. And I'll give you one quick example, and then and then we can move on because I know the the stage exit stage left is coming, right? So there was within the last 2 months there was an example. I don't know if you folks saw this, but there was a an airline out there that put a chatbot on its website, and a customer came and they were typing in some questions, and they said, hey, listen, I just had a death in the family. I'd like to, is there any discounts for people who are under bereavement? And the airline chatbot said, oh, yes, there are. Your ticket is only $9. We sincerely apologize for it. And it connected to their system. It either connected to their system and it issued them the ticket for $9, or they were upset that they didn't get a $9 ticket and they called their customer support center. Either way, they got the ticket for $9 for their whole family. And it's a kind of a weird example for sure. I don't mean to say anything about somebody's loss, but obviously the business wasn't we didn't want to offer a $9 ticket, right? And so
Mhm.
that is also part of governance. If there was a strong governing entity in place for that AI, that mistake wouldn't have happened. Now, luckily, that is a pretty tame mistake, right? And but it's still a mistake, right? And it could have been much, much worse, right? So
Right. I
how's
couldn't
that?
agree with you more. Thank you. Thank you so much, TJ. That's a really great example. I just wanted to share some comments that we're seeing here.
Okay.
I see that one of our attendees says that thank you for this. I have always been skeptical about AI. So, and another comment from one of our attendees has stated that it's a great session. So thank you so much, everyone, for that comment. Really, we really appreciate that. A question actually pops up on the other hand. For you, DJ, what are some AI governance tools to look at? So that's one of the questions that we have for the audience.
Okay, that's a great question. And if I was anyone else, I'd probably be like, let me Google them because they're really not a lot. And that is certainly true. So AI governance tools, probably the most well known, right? And I'm trying to be a little bit more vendor agnostic here, right? I do support a lot of IBM AI, so just to be upfront. But IBM has a pretty wicked governance tool. And not just for their stack, it works for everybody else's stack too. That's why I say it's wicked, because it's not just, captured entity that just works with IBM AI. It'll work with Google and Microsoft Copilot and everyone else. There's a lot of those tools just lack built-in governance tools that are strong. They're just not I don't know. I wonder if it's not there's so many things that this technology is moving so fast. It's just not prioritizing those organizations. Whereas I believe that IBM has had it, a governance framework for a very, very long time because it's old stodgy IBM. They're more conservative than most, I suppose. But there are also smaller startups that I've heard before. I couldn't even begin to rattle off all of them, but like something like Fiddler.ai
Mhm.
would work as a governance tool. But again, they, as far as I know, only look at one particular part of the governance methodology that I outlined for you. I think you need them all, not just one particular part, like explainability of a model or something like that. There's also some tools that are getting better and better. The more I see in Databricks and Snowflake, a lot of you are already customers of those guys. Some of you are laughing and saying that's not governance. Others are saying, wait, they have governance tools. Let me go check. But they do. They're there.
Mhm.
I believe they'll get better over time. But again, it's not just observability or explainability. It's checking against bad inputs. It's checking against bad outputs and their various user behavior and life cycle of the model. All this stuff and model scoring. I mean, I could go on and on and on until I'm blue in the face about this, but all that stuff should be eventually in your definition for governance of your AI. How's that?
Thank you. Thank you, DJ, for answering that question. Now let's move on to our last data set. Let me just. So our team compiled data from more than 200 plus business and technical decision makers across various industries, and we asked them about their biggest challenges, to adopting or expanding AI solutions in their business. And here's what we've uncovered. Like 32% of them stated its cost. 20% of them stated lack of AI skills or talent. 17% stated lack of interest among decision makers. And as you can see here, it says 6% compliance and a
Hmm.
lot more. So, DJ, what are the easiest way, to overcome challenges related to AI adoption?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're I'm glad you're asking that. Yeah, cost. I can see that. I can, right? Cost is a big deal. It's not going to be, depending on what you're doing, it potentially couldn't be, too cheap, if I could use that term, right? Certainly, I think beside cost, the biggest hurdle is the lack of skills. Or what do I do? I don't even know how to get started. I have a whole bunch of developers. They're really good at .NET and mobile. Well, how do
Mhm,
they get started with AI? What do they do? Where are they supposed to go? And I think I have some good answers for you, I think on all of these fronts, right? So this is the world, or at least the AI landscape for large corporations and small corporations, I guess I should say, as DJ sees it today in 2024. Okay, so there's like a 5-man race right now, man, woman race, person race,
mhm,
between the five big players out there. That's AWS and IBM and Microsoft and Google and Oracle. All of them would love to come in and show you their AI stack, show you how incredible it is, and potentially do a proof of concept for you at little to no cost. So that's how I address the cost front, right? First off, you're asking somebody to spend money on something they have no idea if it's even going to be worth it in their organization. And there's the people that I'm addressing that have the doubt that maybe this
mhm,
isn't a good idea, maybe we shouldn't do this. This is a great way to have, very little skin in the game here, cost-wise at least, and see if you can get your AI Center of Excellence and your little SWAT teams together and do a design thinking session and I lead great design thinking sessions, love to help you. So do my partners, of course. And and come up with an idea that is worthy of a proof of concept that we could have largely comped through these vendors, through IBM and Oracle and Google and all the rest, right? That's probably the best way of doing it. Once you have this application built out over 6 or 8 weeks, we call it a minimally viable product or an MVP, right? Minimally viable product. Then you can say to your management or the C-suite and say, listen, we took a chance. We spearheaded AI in our organization. We have this new thing, this widget. It improves upon a current process, or it's a brand new product or something. And now that we see it works and the proof of concept works, we're going to go into the next stage, which is to trial it. And presumably at that point in time, it's a success. So you folks, the customers, will say, okay, I had this thing designed for me. I learned how they did it, what they did, and I'm going to start paying for the stack, the technology stack that they built it on. So that's what all these companies have in it for them, right? Is they want you on their technology stack. Some of them are more open than others. I'll be right out and say that, right? Others are much more closed. You can only run them in their cloud service or their own stack, I should say. So, that's a big thing, or something you should be at least aware of. Um, so that, again, that's how I would overcome the cost aspect of it. I think once you do the minimally viable product and you have it all built out, if you're still unsure what to do or how to take care of this stuff, you can still engage with a services engagement after that with the organization to continue to show you how to operationalize the AI through the entire life cycle. Obviously, after 8 weeks, you've not seen a model get stale. You've not seen, anything like that happen.
mhm,
You're only going to have a handful of models. Trust me, when you get down the road and you're doing AI and it's a big
mhm,
part of your business and you have 200 models sitting there, some of them in production, some of them getting phased out of production, but you need to keep them anyway, just in case for various reasons, for, reportability and compliance reasons, it starts to get a little, little, little loopy in your head in some sense, right?
mhm,
So yeah, that's how I'll answer that. MVP, minimally viable
Cool.
product, was a design thinking session. Your favorite
Mhm.
vendors probably are already will do something much cheaper than you're expecting, and
Mhm.
you go from there. Now, I will comment on a couple of these other ones, right? There is a lack of interest area
Mhm.
here, and I want to say with the greatest respect is I do think that is a tad irresponsible for most of these corporations or organizations, right? I get it. If you're not the type of person that's really interested in AI, what it can do for your company, find someone that is and make it their problem. Make them the AI Center of Excellence chair. I'm not kidding. I've
Mhm.
seen this done and it's working great in a couple of places that I've seen it, right? Let them
Right.
go run with it and go figure it out. And lastly, um, I think there's a good amount of FUD out there, or maybe I should reiterate some of the FUD, the fear and certainly doubt that within the recent past, certain consulting firms
Mhm.
have talked to top CIOs, CTOs, and CEOs all over America, and they feel that AI adoption will be a competitive advantage for their business. So much so that if their competitors refuse to adopt AI at a pace that matches their own, that they'll get left behind and they just won't be able to compete in the landscape in the future. So I think
Mhm.
that's a big fear. Guys, do I buy into that or not? Not completely no, but I certainly wouldn't want to
Mhm.
be that one business that my cost structure is thus when my competition is using AI and their cost structure declines over time. And that's all I wanted to say. So, um,
Okay.
there you go.
All right. Thank you, DJ.